hasn't prepared our economy for the global headwinds that will now hit us.
And yet the Chancellor might say spending too much got us into the economic mess in the first place.
Well, what got us into the economic mess was bankers speculating, and what I'm really worried about at the moment is that he's turning a blind eye to what's going on in the city at the moment. He's lifting the regulation that was brought in after the crisis on the banks. A lot of that now is being softened. He prevented the inquiry into the banks that the Financial Conduct Authority was going to go ahead with. He failed to influence that in any way in terms of going forward, and he's held it back. In addition to that, he removed the very person we appointed at the FCA who was the consumer champion. So I'm really worried that we're going back to square one, and all the problems about banking deregulation, the failure of the banks to act responsibly, consumer credit rising, the failure to address the growth in our manufacturing base, all of those problems that caused the crisis last time seem to be reappearing again because his failure to address them.
And yet you have to acknowledge that Britain's economy is doing a lot better than many countries beyond these shores, with record employment as well. There's a lot to celebrate, is there not?
Well, let's look at that, because we have to be really clear about what's happening within our economy. First, we're at a different stage in the economic cycle from many other countries themselves. The employment increasing, which I'm really pleased about, but the nature of that employment, a lot of it is low-paid and insecure, zero-hours contracts now, which have, again, multiplied on a scale we've never seen before. And the impact of that is that a large number of people on low pay are resorting to borrowing to be able to get by. And that means consumer credit's going up, interest rates increase, and they get hit very, very hard. And remember, you know, 1 million people visiting food banks last year. The problem is this. He says he's got a long-term economic plan, but it isn't long-term, it's short-term. We get different messages every 3 months. What he should be doing is investing in our economy, investing in our infrastructure, in skills, in our manufacturing base, making sure we go into the new technology in particular, high skills, high wages. And in that way, we can withstand global economic headwinds that hit us.
Let me just ask you a little bit about the Labour reshuffle. Now over at last. Looking back on it, do you think it went well? Do you think it was handled well?
I think it was handled in the best possible way, in the style that Jeremy Corbyn wanted, which was, I know we didn't meet media deadlines and all the rest of it, and I know it's different from what you've experienced in the past, but that's the nature of Jeremy. He's a very considerate and caring person. He wanted to make sure he spoke to everybody, consulted everybody, and he took his time over taking people's views into account. That didn't meet your media schedules, and I'm sorry if journalists were hanging about quite long hours, but he wanted to do it properly, and I think it's come out. As a result of that, it's come out in a way which I think will strengthen us in the future and enable us to have a united party campaigning against the Conservatives and exposing what George Osborne is doing. And can I just say on that, we want a party that's advocating investment. And if you want an example of George Osborne's failure to invest, he failed to invest in our flood defence system. As a result of that, we've now got a bill for about $5 billion. And those poor people have had their homes flooded as a result of his failures.
And as you know,
we're the party that will stand up for them.
The government continues to argue that they're spending more in real times on flood defences. But I'm interested, I want to pick up on your...
That's not true, is it? That is just not true.
That debate will...
Because what's happened in the first years, and George Osborne and David Cameron were challenged on that yesterday, is that they cut the flood defence investment plans in 2010 onwards. They only then started putting more money in after people's homes were flooded, and then they took the examples of Kendal and Leeds, they cut those schemes, and as a result of that, tragically, people had their homes flooded. I think that's a disgraceful performance of this government.
Let me just go back to what you were saying about the reshuffle now meaning that you've got a united party. Do you regret then describing the 3 Labour MPs who quit as a result of the reshuffle? You describe them as a narrow right-wing clique. Does that help party unity?
I think it makes sure that people are clear about what those people's objectives were. I don't think they had the interests of the Labour Party in the long term at heart. I think they've pursued their own particular narrow politics. But I'm hoping now that we can convince them to get back on board and start working with us, the rest of the party. Remember, Jeremy Corbyn had the largest mandate of any political leader when he was elected leader of the Labour Party. I want people to respect that now and enable us to unite and campaign against the Tories and expose exactly what David Cameron and George Osborne are doing to our